The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back. Comfortably zoned with me, the Zig Zag Man, in Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco, across the moat from Oakland, in the great state of California. And when I talk to Jerry Feitelberg, I like to say he's from Massachusetts, I'm from New York, we're both in California, and I like to say we done good. Right, Jerry Feitelberg?
Absolutely. We both live in Alameda. We have, at least I have my home in Alameda. I've been a resident there since 1980, so it's 43 years. And my kids went to Alameda High School, and they've done very well for themselves. And it's always nice to go to Alameda, you know. And I have to tell you, if I had to commute from the peninsula to the ball game every day, I'd be a basket case. Yesterday, after the game was over, the traffic heading down to the Dumbarton Bridge, so I could take the bridge over to the peninsula, was nightmarish. It was an accident on the freeway, and it took 15 minutes to go from Hagenberger to 98th Avenue. So that's how bad it was. It was not pleasant yesterday. It took an hour and a half to get home.
Do you remember how the roads and freeways were in this area in the 60s and mid-60s to 70 and what have you? They were incredibly clear, and the traffic was one of the reasons I decided to stay in California, because I don't know about Boston, but New York is one big traffic jam after another, and it's impossible to commute. It's impossible to go from here to there. How's Boston for traffic?
Traffic is miserable. They have narrow streets. They have one expressway. They don't have a lot of freeways, and you have to take the streets. And the drivers play chicken with you. The rules of the road don't apply. It's just tough driving in Boston. So
well, it's pretty much the same here in California now.
Well, the streets in Alameda aren't too bad. There isn't that. In the morning, leaving town, yes, it's difficult because it's a bedroom community. And coming home during rush hour, the streets get a little crowded, but it's not terrible. But years ago,
I'm talking Northern California in general, not just Alameda. We're blessed for several reasons. That's going to end pretty soon, that blessing, because they build more than they can transport in terms of who's going to take these people to work and what have you. Yeah. And there's only a limited amount of ways of getting in and out. But my point is simply California has turned into what the East Coast is in terms of traffic and craziness. That's all.
Well, years ago, when I first moved and I was active in the California Pharmacists Association, I got elected to the board of trustees, and I had to go to Sacramento. I could do Sacramento in about 90 minutes, an hour and a half from Alameda. You take Highway 80 right to Sacramento. Now, with the traffic and the growth, and part of the growth, as you know, is we've had a tremendous success story in San Francisco, in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's called Silicon Valley. The tech business and the amount of jobs and people that were brought in and the homes that have been built. The area went from a metropolitan area from about 5 million people up to about 7.5 million people. So you're talking about an increase of 2.5 million people with no additional roads. So the roads get jammed up. It's just the way it is. And years ago, when I first moved here, driving down, it was the Nimitz Highway, going from get on the freeway in Oakland and driving down to San Jose. There was a lot of farmland. All that farmland is gone. Houses have been built all over the place. And as I said, with all the tech companies, the success of Apple, the success of Google, the success of Netflix, of Facebook, all these companies have brought people from all over the world to work here in the Bay Area. The demand for housing has been strong. It's made prices for houses off the charts, but that's the price of success, unfortunately. So, the freeways aren't. And the other thing that the bright people at Caltrans have done is years ago they put in the diamond lane. So they took one lane, the fast lane on the freeway, the one on the far left. The fourth, it's a 4-lane road in each direction. They took the fourth lane, made it into, and you had to have at least 2 people in there, and you could use the diamond lane. Now the bright sparks have said, "Oh, let's make some money of it. It's not gonna be totally free anymore. We're gonna put in an express lane, and we're gonna charge tolls if you want to use it." And it's not going to be the diamond lanes were during the rush hour periods, like from 5 in the morning to 8 in the morning, or 8 to 9, and from 3 in the afternoon to 7 in the afternoon. Now the express lanes go from 5 in the morning to 8 at night. If you want to use it, you got to pay, and they have a thing called surge pricing, which means, if there's no traffic, the toll is relatively inexpensive. It could be 75 cents or $1 or whatever, and they had different segments. But when there's traffic and it's jammed up like it was last night, the surge pricing could go to $7 or $14, whatever it is. They charge extraordinary amounts of money to use the express lane, except last night.
Hey, Jerry, let's not fail to blame big business for a lot of this. If you remember, during the pandemic, people were staying home, working from home by design. And it was, if you'll excuse the redundancy of words, it was working. And now
it still is working. A lot of people are still working from home.
And not as many as I would have hoped.
Not as many, right.
And traffic is just about the same as it was before the pandemic. And one of the reasons big business companies don't trust their employers to give a good day's work. And you can't blame them.
I agree with you. Some of them are demanding that the workers come back to the office, and they're getting. I think they're getting some flack from the people who've been working at home. And so those issues, you're seeing what's happening in San Francisco. They've got, I think, over 2 million square feet of unleased space in San Francisco. And prior to the pandemic, there were all the buildings being used. There were people were having to pay $5,000 and $6,000 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment in San Francisco. Employees were putting 6 people in one apartment, in a 1-bedroom apartment. They were sleeping on bunks and on the floor or whatever because they couldn't afford the rents. Now those apartments are empty. The rents have come down a bit, but the big problem, the city of San Francisco is losing a lot of tax money because the businesses, the people haven't come back to the businesses. My daughter was was working at 1455 Market Street in San Francisco, where Uber was. The first 6 floors of the building belonged to Uber. Her company, Square, took 5 or 6 floors in the building. They sublet some space to Reddit, and all 3 companies have moved out. Uber built its own building, and now they're subleasing space in that building. Square moved to a smaller unit, and then they have a facility in Oakland. And I don't know where Reddit went, but these people are moving out of San Francisco, and it's hurting the economy, not only for the city but for the merchants in the area.
Okay, let me segue a little bit. Speaking of hurting the economy, all 3 major sports teams, the Raiders, the Warriors, and now the Oakland A's, are going to be gone shortly. 2 of the 3 of those are gone. The A's are certain to be gone. Now, without blaming ownership or even knowing what's really going on, or blaming the sport and what have you, what does one city do to screw up losing 3 franchises that basically put them out on the map?
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk.
What can they do? Can it have been handled any worse by Oakland and Alameda County? And give me your opinion. I appreciate that, Jerry.
Okay. Well, let's take not the Raiders. We're going to take the Warriors first. The Warriors, when they came many years ago, when they moved from Philadelphia to San Francisco, they played at. I think they played at different facilities. They played at the Cow Palace out in near the Daly City line. I think it was in San Francisco, and they really couldn't find a home in the San Francisco area. They moved out to Oakland, and instead of them calling them the Oakland Warriors, they called them the Golden State Warriors. And they were playing at the arena that was at the same location where the baseball stadium in the Oakland Coliseum, where both baseball and football were being played at the time. And the Warriors won one championship in 1975, and then under various owners for many, many years, they were the laughingstock of the NBA. They were just terrible. They could hardly make the playoffs. They drafted high, and they had terrible management, and nothing went well for them. And then a few years ago, Joe Lacob and Peter Guber bought the Warriors, and the Warriors were playing Oracle's arena. The arena had been revamped and set up, and I think that held 19,000 people for a basketball game. And Joe Lacob and Peter Guber made a pledge to the people that they were, within 5 years, they were going to bring a championship to the Bay Area, to Golden State, to Oakland and Oracle Arena. They were going to win a championship. But they also made a promise that they were going to build a new arena. And they were renting the place in Oakland, and they wanted to build the arena in San Francisco, which they were going to own. And they got a plot of land. They made a deal with Mark Benioff, who was the CEO of Salesforce, who owned the land, and they got some land in the city of San Francisco, and they built an arena, and they didn't leave the Bay Area. They're still they represent the Bay Area, and they just said they wanted to do it themselves. They didn't require any public money, and they built their own arena, and it's a beautiful arena, and it's successful. And so they own it. It's theirs. And they have other events that they bring in to help offset the cost to pay off whatever notes that they have on the building. And of course, the Warriors had great success. They won 3 championships while they were at the Oracle Arena in Oakland. They won in 2015, 17, and 18. And then they moved over, and of course they won a championship last year. So it wasn't because anything Oakland did. It was because that the owners had a different vision, and they did not want to be renters. They wanted to be owners in a franchise in the Bay Area. So that was their. I don't think the city of Oakland did anything bad in that negotiations at all. Now the Raiders, we have to go back in history to the Raiders, and we're going back some 40 years now to around 1980. And the Raiders had been very, very successful in the Bay Area. I think they won a couple Super Bowls, one in the 70s, one in the 80s. And the stadium in Oakland held about 50,000 people for an NFL football game. And it was a very success. Teams hated coming to play Oakland because the fans were like the 12th man. It was loud. It was boisterous. It was the place to go. But it only held 51,000 people. And Al Davis, the owner, was pleading with the city of Oakland, and he had to deal with the county also. He was pleading to get renovations on the stadium to bring it up to snuff and make it a larger, have a capacity for at least 60 to 65,000 people, so that he could compete to get players in the NFL. There was Lionel Wilson was the mayor of Oakland at the time, and there was a phone call from I forgot, Pete Rozelle, who was the NFL commissioner.
Yes.
Pete Rozelle called Mayor Lionel Wilson and said to him, "Mr. Wilson, you do not have to do anything for the Raiders. We have the votes, and that we're not going to let the team move from Oakland to wherever." Well, the Raiders hired Joe Alioto as their attorney, and Alioto was the premier antitrust attorney in the country in those days. And football does not have the antitrust exemption that baseball does. Baseball is the only sport that has a limited antitrust exemption. And Joe Alioto won a lawsuit against the NFL for I forgot how many million, $20 or $24 million, and the Raiders were able to move from Oakland to the Los Angeles Coliseum in LA. And they were going to make reservations. They were going to make renovations on the stadium at the Los Angeles Coliseum. As you know, it was built way back in the 30s, and it was primarily a track stadium. It wasn't a football stadium, and but that was their goal. And the Raiders moved to Los Angeles, and things went south in Los Angeles. They couldn't get the renovations done. They looked to some little town in the San Gabriel Valley to build a stadium, and that fell through. And the Raiders didn't get what they want, and in the meantime, negotiations went on between the Raiders and the Coliseum Commission here in Oakland, and they promised that they would make reservations to put in 60,000 plus people in Oakland. And the Raiders came back after the 1994 season, and they built Mount Davis, they put in the additional seats, and what they did, if you recall, is they were going to pay for it by having personal seat licenses. And when you buy a personal seat license, you pay 30 or 40, whatever it is, ticket to buy your seat. And all that gave you was the right to buy season tickets. So you had the personal seat license, and it could go as much as $30,000 a seat, depending on where it was. But the Raiders screwed it up, or whoever was marketing it, and it was a dismal failure. And the Raiders came back, and things were just not happy between the A's and the Raiders. When the A's
the A's lost the ballpark, and it was made into a stadium.
Yes, so, they had that beautiful view of the Oakland Hills that was gone.
Absolutely, it was beautiful. It was like Kansas City. You look at their stadium, and it's beautiful inside and out. I just wanted to note that this all became possible because of the rivalry of Al Davis, who is the commissioner of the American Football League, and Pete Rozelle, who is the commissioner of the National Football League, around the merger. And that was like World War III.
Yes, it was.
In those, and it's amazing how one event could influence 2 or 3 events down the road.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the A's were angry because they felt that they were second-class citizens. They were renting the facility for 81 plus a couple preseason games, so 83 dates a year. And the Raiders came in for 10, and everyone's falling all over themselves for the Raiders. And the A's are paying, look, we're here, we're employing more people, we have more games, you have 10 games, we have 81, and you're making all these concessions for us, and you're not doing anything for us. So, and then when the Raiders came back then the A's were in charge. The Raiders had the same grievance. Why are you doing everything for the A's and you're not doing anything for us, and all that stuff? But so it was, the war was going on. Who was being treated better, the A's or the Raiders? And as it turned out, the city and the county are still on. They bought, I think, $100 million bond to build Mount Davis, and I think there's money still owed on that bond. It's not. It will be paid off shortly, but they still have to pay for it. And
wow.
so the NFL, they had a bunch of new stadiums built, just like in baseball. Said that the Oakland Coliseum wasn't appropriate for NFL stadiums, and they built SoFi Stadium in L.A. Now they have Allegiant Stadium. The Cowboys built a magnificent stadium down in Dallas, with all, and the Oakland Stadium is close to 60 years old. It doesn't have the amenities that the other stadiums have. And so when it became you have to follow the money. And the money was in Las Vegas, and the Raiders were able to put together a deal. They were looking, if you recall, in the negotiations to move to Las Vegas. In order to build the stadium, they needed $750 million. Mark Davis does not have that kind of money, or did not have that kind of money. He was negotiating with Sheldon Adelson, who was a hotel magnate. Adelson's company owned the Venetian in Las Vegas, and Adelson said, I'll give you the money, but I want a piece of the Raiders. Mark Davis was unwilling to sell any portion of the Raiders to Adelson. So that deal fell through. And then he went to the Nevada legislature, and they got $750 million in public money to build a stadium for the Raiders. And The stadium is beautiful, and the Raiders play there, and it's been a success for the Raiders. Which brings us to the A's and what's going on with the A's and why the city now is in danger of losing its third franchise. The A's were, as you know, when Walter Haas bought the team from Charlie Finley at the end of the 1980 season, the Coliseum in 1980 was in dire straits. The sound system did not work well. Everything was sort of run down. But Walter Haas came in. They improved the sound system. They made it a fun place to be. They brought in Billy Martin to manage the team. And if you recall, in 1981, they had a baseball strike that year. But the A's won the first half of the season, and the Yankees won the second half. And the Yankees went to the World Series, played the Dodgers that year. But what happened was, in the A's weren't a good team after Martin left. And in 1986, they hired Tony La Russa after he got fired from the White Sox. And in 1986, they had Rookie of the Year Jose Canseco, 87 Rookie of the Year Mark McGwire, 88 Rookie of the Year Walt Weiss. And they had, and they brought back Dave Stewart. They plucked him off the Texas Rangers. They made a trade for Dennis Eckersley, and they had a great pitching staff. They had Ricky Henderson had been traded, so he came back in '89. But in '87, and 88, 89, and 90, they had a tremendous team. McGuire was at first base. Terry Steinbach was the catcher. Mike Gallego was their second baseman. Weiss their shortstop. Carney Lansford. And then they had Dave Henderson in center field, Canseco in right field. And then, of course, in '89, when Ricky came back, he was in left field. And they won 3 pennants and won the championship in 1989. And in those years, they put in over 2 million people. And then I think in 1988 or 89, they put in almost 2.75 million people, almost 3 million people in that ballpark. And the reason they brought in people is because they had spruced up the park, they had a winning team, and people came to see them, and they made it a fun atmosphere for the people. It was very fan-friendly, but nothing lasts forever. And Walter Haas passed away in 1995, the last day of the season in 1995, shortly after the final game of the year. And
no, I didn't know that.
And the team, the Walter's son, Wally Haas Jr., they couldn't do it or didn't want to continue the team. The tax burden was too high or whatever. There was some financial reason. And they sold the team at that time. The team was worth about $95 million in 1995, and they sold it to 2 developers. They gave them a hometown discount, sold it to them $75 million. They took over the team in 1995, and they had a different view of what they should be paying players. And so the team struggled after Walter Haas died. They were terrible in 96, 97, 98. They started to get better in late 99, early 2000. They had the big 3 pitchers, Mulder, Hudson, and Zito, and then they had some talent. And they made it to the playoffs, but they couldn't get past the first round. And then they were good. Then they traded the players away and started all over again. And this has been their business model for the last 30 years. So they get young talent, they develop the talent, and when they have to pay them, they trade them. And the fans get disappointed. And the A's have not been to the World Series since 1990. That's 33 years. And they're not going to go this year either. It's going to be a while before they make it. So Schottenhofen sold the team in 2005. The team was up for sale, and Joe Lacob, who was the owner of the Warriors, actually had a higher bid on the team to purchase the team in 2005. The team that got the bid was John Fisher and Lou Wolf. And the reason those two gentlemen got the team was that Lou Wolf and Bud Selig were fraternity brothers in college. So that was why Joe Lacob didn't get the team. And one of the things that Wolf and Fisher wanted to do immediately was move the team to San Jose. They would keep the team in the Bay Area, but they wanted to build a stadium in San Jose. But the thing that really screwed it up was the fact that
Giants had the domain.
Yeah, Giants. Yes, the Giants were looking to build a stadium. They were playing at Candlestick Park. Candlestick Park was a nightmare. It was cold, windy, damp. It was a very unfavorable place to play baseball. So
understated.
Yeah. So Bob Lurie asked Walter Haas. I guess they knew each other because they're both real estate people in San Francisco. If he had any objection to them moving to San Jose, so they gave him the territorial rights. Haas didn't object to it, so MLB granted territorial rights to the Giants to build a stadium in San Jose. And the Giants, they had to put a referendum on it, and the Giants lost the referendum. The people of San Jose voted against it. So the Giants, under Bob Lurie was going to sell the team, or he was going to move the team to Tampa Bay. And they got together a group and said, look, we're going to buy the team. Major League Baseball wants, most of the teams want to come out to, it's more cost effective for them to come out if there's a team in San Francisco. So the Dodgers played the Dodgers and the Giants. So there was a lot of opposition to the Giants moving to Tampa Bay, and they put together a consortium. And in 1993, Peter McGowan took over running the Giants, and the Giants have been we're still playing at Candlestick, but they were able to build the ballpark in San Francisco, which is now known as Oracle Park. And it's been a success. It's 23 years old. It's been a wonderful success since it got built. So,
hey, Jerry, don't forget to tell the folks the reason the Giants couldn't move to Tampa Bay was Bill White was commissioner. And Bill White remembered how he and the other blacks were treated in spring training when they shared spring training facilities with the Yankees. And it was horrible for them. And Bill White said, the Giants will move to San Jose over my dead body.
You mean to Tampa Bay?
It's a Tampa Bay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and anyway, they didn't move. But so theoretically, the Giants owned territorial rights, and the A's wanted to move, but it was challenged. And of course, the Giants said no, and the city of San Jose sued, and they lost because baseball has this antitrust exemption. Apparently, they can't get the Giants to relinquish the territorial rights. So the A's were frustrated. Big mistake
by the Giants. In essence, they forced them out of town. And they don't realize that the best that they did while they were playing in Candlestick were the years that the A's were great too. And one played off another. The 89, they both played in the World Series. That was the year of the earthquake. If you check it out, both teams drew over 2 million that year. And
if the teams are good, if the team is good, the interest is there, they will draw. If a team is terrible, whether it's the Yankees, the Red Sox, they will not put fannies in the seats. You have to win. That's paramount in baseball. You know, the late Vince Lombardi said, "Winning isn't everything; it's the only thing." In pro sports, winning is the only thing. And the A's, under the current ownership, just don't seem to care to win. It's unbelievable.
Well, winning isn't the only thing, but wanting to win is the only thing.
Yeah,
and the A's don't have it right, and Oakland didn't have it right by not putting together a ballpark that would make all the businesses around them successful, like what the Giants did in their area. Was almost not a slum, but just not a great area. Oh, did they make it beautiful for the businesses around them? And for some reason, Oakland looked at anything, or Oakland and Alameda County looked at anything that they did as an expense as opposed to an investment. And
absolutely. That area where Oracle Park sits now, when I moved here in 1980, that was an old warehouse area. They actually had an old blacksmith shop, still a blacksmith shop, still in the area, but there was nothing there, and it was kind of run down. And that whole area called Mission Bay has been a phenomenal success for the city of San Francisco.
The condominiums that went up, and the bars, and the places to buy memorabilia, and the restaurants, and it was a boom for the city in terms of the revenue it produced, tax revenue. And we should have been city planners. That's what we should have been.
So now,
instead,
so let's talk about the current, where the A's are playing now, where the Oakland Coliseum is. It's located. It has a freeway off ramp. It has a BART station right there, and it's not difficult to get to the Oakland Coliseum. And it sits on about, I think, 120 acres. And it includes a tremendous amount of parking. And there's no reason, like they've done in other cities. Look at where Yankee Stadium is. They built a brand new stadium right next to the old Yankee Stadium.
In the parking lot. You tear one down, and Comiskey Park is same thing, basically.
Sure,
right
Citi Field in New York, same thing. Right next to where Shea Stadium was, they built a much nicer stadium because it had all the amenities already in there. All the infrastructure was there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So the A's could have done that. Major League Baseball said, no, we don't want you to rebuild in there. And John Fisher, and company, they looked at Laney College, and that didn't work out. They didn't dot their I's and cross their T's when they were negotiating with Laney College, and they put together a deal only to have the top executives at Laney College said, "You're not building a stadium here. It's going to be too disruptive to the students." So that was killed. They looked at Fremont. They were going to build Cisco Field. That didn't have any public transportation. They had to figure all kinds of ways to get people in there, and that fizzled out. So now they settled on Howard Terminal, which is in an industrial area, although it's not too far from Jack London Square, where there's restaurants and bars, and that would have been a boom for that area. And the plan was to build a 35,000 seat stadium, and Fisher wanted to build 3,000 units of housing. They were going to put in office space, retail space, a theater, a park, and it's sitting on 55 acres. And there was a lot of opposition and a lot of hurdles, and they were working with the city of Oakland. They wanted $500 million from the city of Oakland, which is a tremendous amount of money for a city of Oakland that has so many problems.
Oh, you can't believe it. The schools, the police force is still federally controlled. It's just falling apart, to say nothing of the homeless. But that's
but at the same time,
through California.
But they did have they've had a lot of development in downtown. There's been a lot of new building going on. They put in some residential units on the western side of 880. That was Brooklyn Basin area. They put in a lot of housing, and that was under Jerry Brown. Those places.
Right, I was going to say that man was a terrific mayor of Oakland.
So there has been some building in Oakland, and this was a tremendous project. Now, the city of Oakland went out and got grants for $350 million for the purpose of the infrastructure and doing what they had to do to help build the ballpark. They didn't have the $500 million. They were looking for $180 million. I think, from the Department of Transportation, and they were denied. But they did have $350 million, and they were negotiating. And a couple of years ago, the A's were getting fed up, not necessarily with the city, but all the stuff. They had lawsuits from the Maritime Union. They're claiming that the lights would be a problem, and there are other issues that came up. Then some organization called the BCDC put a kibosh on it. They had to overcome that, and they did that. And it looked like they were getting close to getting everything done for the Oakland Stadium at our terminal. But in the meantime, the A's said, well, if this doesn't go through, let's have a plan B. And plan B, they started looking in Las Vegas. And again, we don't know who was doing the negotiations or what they were looking for, but it was always, if they couldn't get Oakland to do what they want, they were going to go to Las Vegas. And about 3 or 4 weeks ago, they announced that they had a binding agreement to purchase 49 acres in Las Vegas, and they were going to build the stadium on that site, and they had the option to buy another 50 acres of land to develop it. Well, that lasted a week, and then we heard that they were going to enter into a deal to build a 30,000 seat stadium on 9 acres on the Tropicana Hotel was going to be rebuilt. They have 36 acres on a 36-acre lot, but the A's were only going to get 9 acres, and they were going to build a retractable roof stadium. And they were asking the Nevada people of the legislature and Clark County in Nevada to come up with $500 million in public money to help build this $1.5 billion stadium. And so, as you know, they have to get the legislature. The legislature, Nevada legislature, ends on June 5th, which is next Monday. And the A's were able to get a bill called, I think it was SB 509. They had a public hearing on it Monday night. and it's hard to read the tea leaves, but most of the pundits are saying it's 50-50. Clark, the state of Nevada is going to come up with $180 million in transferable tax credits. Clark County is going to come up with bonds for $120 million. They got another $25 million for something, and they're, it has to be voted on by Monday. They did have the hearing, and no one knows how that's going to go at this point in time. It's 50-50. And they have a lot of people.
What if it doesn't go through?
Well, if it doesn't go through in Las Vegas, how does John Fisher come back to Oakland? The mayor of Oakland said, if he calls, we'll listen. So they have their stuff, and if it doesn't go through, he can come back to Oakland. The problem is,
or go to Nashville.
Well, let's find. If he comes back to Oakland, you think the fans, if he builds the stadium, the fans are going to come out and support him after what he did to the city?
Yeah, it's not him. It's the overall A's. Nobody has seen or heard from John Fisher since he bought the team, so they don't know. The fans will be delighted, believe me. And if they market it properly, you got a lot of East Bay to draw from.
Oh, yeah.
Livermore, Danville, all out there. And if they got a good stadium, ideally a stadium that faces across the bay from San Francisco, it would be great. I think we both agreed over lunch the other day that the chances of that at this point are not good.
No, I don't think he could. If it doesn't go and he still wants to own the team, he's got to go to another city. But he'd have to sell the team. Joe Lacob has a standing offer to buy the team. That would be the best thing that could happen to the A's, is to have Lacob buy it. And
I would like to see how that deal looks to John Fisher, because that's the only thing on his mind is, what am I going to get out of this?
Well, the thing is, you look at it. He wanted to have a $12 or $13 billion project on 55 acres in Oakland, and he's saying, "The hell with that! I'll go to a 9-acre development in Las Vegas." How does it square? You're talking about building 12 or 13 billion, creating. I mean, it was a wonderful project. Just stop and think.
Look at the people that opposed. The environmentalists were and are opposing. There are unions opposing. He might have gone, well, if I can't do it, how much am I going to put into worrying about it? And
but at the same time, look at all the reasons that the people were stating for the A's to come to Las Vegas. Is the increased taxes, the increased jobs, the support of the culinary workers union, the support of the pipe fitters union, the support of the building trades union. All the unions, all those same things apply in Oakland. If all those things are good for Las Vegas, all those things would be good for Oakland. And why it couldn't get done, I don't know. And if I'm the mayor of Oakland, having gone through all this stuff, getting the $350 million and saying, here we're working with you, and have them call up and say, have the A's say, we're ending negotiations with you, we're going to Las Vegas, that has to be disheartening. I don't think that.
Well, maybe they were forced into it by Major League Baseball, who has supported the A's in one way or the other for the past 20 years.
Yeah, there's another thing too that we haven't discussed, and I'm not sure what's going on. If you go to Atlanta, when the Braves moved from Milwaukee to Atlanta, they moved to Fulton County Stadium. That's where Hank Aaron set the home run record. Then they built another stadium not far away. It was primarily a black neighborhood. They were there for about 20 years. And then Major League Baseball said, no, you can't. We don't want you there. We want you to move out. They moved out to an area that was a little further out, more suburban, and they built a community around the baseball stadium, housing that time. It's called Truist Field, and it's been a success. Now, as you know, the Oakland Coliseum is in East Oakland, and around the area, there's nothing really, no great amenities around the area. It's a kind of rough area for people to go. And Major League Baseball was adamant that the new stadium would not be built in the current location, although the current location, in my mind, is the proper place to go.
Of course, it has all the infrastructure built in.
It's all there, but I don't think Major League Baseball liked the neighborhood.
Okay.
What was the
Jerry, we are running short in time. Let's continue this as we do on a regular basis. I am so grateful. You did this, and I know I'm on the phone with you, but I know there are no notes. You went through this entire thing off the top of your head. You're a treasure, and I recognize it from a friendship aspect, but also from a producing aspect at Comfortably Zoned. You, Al Blumkin, I've got some intellect around me, George Grimm.
Peter Golenbach.
I mean, I don't know where to start sometime. I am a very lucky person to have be surrounded by baseball mavens. It's just great. How Bach comes to mind, George Case, David Hubler, Jack DeGraw, Diener, Robert Cole, Marty Rose, Bernie Rose, Sam Stith. It's just been a terrific ride for me. I'm just trying to keep it together in this changing world. And so I appreciate you. That's my point.
Well, thank you. And I just want to make a point. Yesterday, I covered the A's game with the Atlanta Braves, and there were 4,600 people in the stands. How sad is that?
As the Topps representative in the 80s and 90s, I went to minor league stadiums that had more people and more enthusiasm on their pinky finger than what's been left. And how are they going to make it for another 2 or 3 years before, even if they build the stadium?
Yeah, one more thing is now, and now they're saying the stadium will not be ready by 2027. It will be 2028. The A's lease expires next year, so they're going to be in the wilderness for 3 years before the stadium is built in Las Vegas. So
well,
they got all problems, and it all starts with John Fisher. What John Fisher did when he ordered the team to sell all the star players after the 2021 season, and then doubled the prices and had them raise the prices, the fans were just left speechless. You're giving us this crappy product, and you want us to pay more for it? No way. That's not. They just didn't market it properly. The fans felt that they're having their heart ripped out. You lived in New York and you lost your team, the Giants, to San Francisco. I lived in Boston as a boy. The Braves went from Boston to Milwaukee. Your favorite team leaves. It leaves a huge, and of course in Brooklyn, it ripped the heart and soul out of that community when the Dodgers left.
And the Giants, remember, we lost New York. I was there. We lost Willie in his, what I call his first prime.
Yes,
and he was delightful then. Not only did his play reflect it, but his head was clear. It was before his divorce, before Leo got fired. It was just a sin. Absolutely. Anyway, as usual, it is nice to kibitz with you, my friend.
It sure is.
All right. And if you're listening, it's the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Jerry Feitelberg is the guest. I'm Ralph Tycho, the weak link of it all. So all I can say is adios and happy trails. Be
Bye-bye.
well. Thank you again, Jerry.
Thanks for having me.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.